Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh to some of you, and peace out to the rest of you. The blackest hearted, blackest minded, blackest man on social media signing black in and shining again, asking you to hit the share button because the message is more important than the messenger. That having been said, let me go ahead and point out to you that I understand, and shout out to a non-black man for bringing this to our attention. I understand that there is someone on Twitter calling for black boys to be suspended from school and black men to lose their jobs if it is found that they do not date and marry darker skinned women. When a man refuses to date or marry darker skinned women, generally speaking, I do take issue with it. On the surface, I do. But what I've also come to find out is that most men actually aren't that bad. Men will talk stuff and wind up with exactly what they said they weren't going to tolerate. And oftentimes I don't blame them when they're young, because what they're not willing to tolerate is all that's out there. It doesn't really matter what standards a man has. It seems as if the entire female population within his age range is out to remove those standards and to get in his pockets anyway. That's what it seems like. I could be wrong. I doubt it. And so that being said, there are men out there that will say that, and there are men out there that'll say they're not going to be with a light-skinned woman. And they wind up with them. Because like I said, the society is against men having standards, and that's really what I'm talking about today. Now, number one, even though I don't support men when they refuse or insist on a shade, I don't generally support that. I do understand preferences, and if it's just a preference, but it's not a hard and fast rule, I don't interfere, and I don't even interfere when it's a hard and fast rule for them. As much as I may not agree, I don't interfere, and here's why. This is only about attacking men's preferences, and it's not about attacking women's preferences. And I'm all about justice. If we're going to be buttholes, let's be buttholes to everybody. And that's part of why I've said that a woman that turns tricks is actually more useful to a society than a woman that doesn't turn tricks, but that lies about what she wants and screws the opposite of what she says she wants. Says she wants this, gets validated, gets the confidence, pursues the exact opposite, and screws him and gives him all the walls in the cervix, and even gives him a baby. That's the truth of the matter. That's what's going on right now. I look at this and I think this is so messed up. Because somebody is sitting up here on Twitter calling for this and is not calling for any ladies to lose their jobs or be suspended from any schools and face any threats to their professional lives or futures based on their preferences. If you can find where this Twitter page is, I don't have an account. That's how I didn't even know about a lot of this stuff. But if you can find this Twitter page, then go in and say, let's introduce also the idea of ladies losing their jobs or their places in nice schools because of their preferences. If they refuse to date short men, broke men, light-skinned men, or dark-skinned men, but we know that's only going to be light-skinned men, then they should lose theirs. It's just the same. Because remember, gender equality, right? We're all about being fair. And then watch how that idea gets laughed down. We can't police someone's preferences, then we can't police someone's preferences. It doesn't work one way and not both ways. Now, Sergeant Willie Pete brought up a point. And that was that there will be women that will chase, or they'll want light-skinned guys to try to have a mixed baby, but when they want to settle down in the long term, they do want to settle down with someone that's more abundantly melanated. Henry Henshaw III disagreed. I don't blame him for disagreeing because what he observed is what he observed. Henry Henshaw, while stating that he is light skinned, later on stated something. It may have been height, but my memory could be bad, but it was something that compensated for being quite pale, at least in the environments with which I'm familiar. The entire southeastern United States and New York City. I'm not even that familiar with New York City. I just know that there were a lot of, I know that it was in New York City, that it was quite plain and easy to observe that African American women were not into light skinned men. They didn't even want to hear it. Then again, they also weren't into guys from small towns either. I knew that when I was going to school in Atlanta. They couldn't stand it when they could not tolerate it when a light-skinned man approached them. That bothered them, and they didn't like it when men from smaller towns or small cities approached them. That bothered them too. So my friend who was a stud actually back on the Gulf Coast, because he was tall and athletic, that had to compensate for his skin tone. That guy who was a stud, he got insulted by some of these northeastern women, but he quickly just stopped approaching them, and he was just friendly with them. He didn't approach them. It didn't take him long. And of course, there were women from Mississippi that were still on his tip. Now the thing was, he did not have to compensate per se in any other fashion because he was already taller and more athletic. And so that was enough. But even then, it wasn't the ones from Atlanta that were sweating him. It was the ones from places like Mississippi. And I mean small town Mississippi. So that being said, I wanted to tell y'all this too, though. Again, this whole issue is being weaponized only against men. And, oh, by the way, SWP, you brought up that point that they may want to, in the long term, they tend to want to settle with a more abundantly melanated man. Somebody, I couldn't see I can't remember who it was, and I'm trying to remember the timestamp, but it was within the first hour. Somebody confirmed this on a non-black man's live stream, School Days. His most recent video as of my recording this one. Somebody actually in the chat confirmed it and said the same thing. They may want the mixed baby. They may not. And I'm going to tell you this, gentlemen. I want you guys to understand, as brothers, and then I'm out. Then I'm done. The colorism as practiced by Western black women, the majority of them, I'm not casting blame at the innocents because that's not how I do it. Remember, I'm all about that justice. But the colorism as practiced by the Western black women is an insult to both. It is. And what it shows is that in reality, it is black men as a whole that they look down on for one reason or another. Now, some would say, well, how could you tell? Well, it's easy. It's easy to see if you think back. Now, because of the male libido, it can be hard to tell. But when you think about it, it's easy to tell. We already know what the negative stereotypes are of paler skinned men with recessive traits. What they call Eurocentric traits, what I would actually refer to as just East African traits, or just lighter skinned men. We know there's negative stereotypes there. Sensitive, small wieners, acting corny, can't dance, jokes ain't funny, all that stuff. And guess what? They do see the more abundantly melanated man as more masculine, and that is a positive. However, they also see him as being the negative stereotypes that white men have of them, that racist white men have of them. The negative stereotypes, hypermasculine, but not very smart, not brainy. So even that black manhood is seen as being limited in its intelligence. All aggression, all brawn, but no brain and no tactics and no strategies. And that's why they will sit up and say that if you are a man, you will run up on those cops right now with all their guns. You'll take your little pistol and run up on all of them because they think that you're actually stupid enough to do this to prove your manhood to her so that she can feel better. That's what that's about. So when you see her glorifying the dark-skinned man, it is not quite the same slap in the face as the image she has of the paler man, but there is still some slap in the face to it. Still there is. Because see, number one, he better not show that he is something deeper than just their stereotype, because then she loses respect for his manhood. There's still that. Now he can get away with a little bit of reading, a little bit of writing, especially if he's knocking some people out every now and then. He can get away with that. Angry Man can read comics, but then again, less than a year ago, Angry Man was in a barber shop and he knocked a man out. Okay, well, he doesn't have to be that pale. Now, if Angry Man were darker, he could do a little bit more comic reading without having to knock somebody out, get away with it, a little bit more, a little bit. But when even a abundantly melanated man does not fit the negative King Kong stereotypes that the racist white has in his mind, it is Boomshika and Bonquisha and Sapphire that get disgusted and disappointed, suck their teeth and say, this shika ain't knit, and they bounce. They'll do that. Because remember this, we are not the only ones that are going through a lot of the things we're going through, but we are the only ones. We are the only ones who are being judged by our own women based on the enemy's worst stereotypes of us. We're the only ones like that. That's it. There was a time I would have taken their preference for Chocolate Brothers as race loyalty. There was a time I would have done that. At this point, though, I'm coming to understand that the ways that they view each one are not necessarily race loyalty, but rather disloyalty. If anything, dysgenic breeding. The insistence upon turning the next generation into worse than what we already have to deal with. The insistence upon using the hood and its struggles as a standard of normality and as a standard of authenticity, and nothing else counts. And this is why it is that I no longer have respect for the ones that come from rough neighborhoods and are looking for these guys to be able to protect them in those neighborhoods. I still don't look, because one of the ways that you can protect them while in that neighborhood is keeping a low profile while you save up to get out. That's one of the ways you can do that. You keep a low profile while you're saving, you get out of the hood, you go to a safer environment, either out in the country or just a nicer neighborhood. Or even just, maybe not even more expensive, but just a safer neighborhood. You do that, and I'm telling you, you doing that is not enough for her. Because in the end, what she really wants, even when she's from the suburbs, is she wants you to go and rush the army bases with your little pistols, your little Glock 9s, and just start busting on the white man, just to show him that you a man, so that she can feel better when you dead. She'll find the only way she'll respect you is when you die in a suicidal attack on white supremacy physically. That's it. See, Malcolm said that he and his wife had trouble. She misses him now, though. Well, she did. I mean, she missed him after he was gone. But while they were together, it was all struggle and hardship. And he said it was getting to her. Oh, yeah. I'm not going to go further than that. Because truth be told, Alex Haley, there's doubt about, the doubt's not on Malcolm, the doubt's on Alex Haley. However, you get the idea. So, gentlemen, I wanted you to just keep this in mind that everything they are doing right now is a weaponization against you and only you. Nothing is being weaponized against any of them, no matter how bad they are. As a matter of fact, if you look at whatever is being weaponized against black women, the only thing that's being weaponized is when they know how to behave. They're not trying to drive you away. They want to appreciate you. And then the word pick me and pick Misha are weaponized against them. Nothing else is weaponized against any of them. Only the ones that want to act like you are their man have anything weaponized against them. No one else. A woman could cut a man's wiener off, go up on Oprah and brag about it and get away with it. Another one could say, well, he takes care of me. I only work part-time. And yes, we get home, I do the cooking. He cleans a little bit, washes the dishes, but I do more of the cooking because I'm only working part-time. He's taking good care of me. The family's fine. Which in and of itself requires luck as well as hard work to be possible. And they're going to sit up here and say, wait a minute, why aren't you complaining about him? Why aren't you blaming him for something? Girl, don't you know what this is? Like she's some kind of Uncle Tom or traitor to a cause. How does a gender take up a cause against another gender that loves it? How does that work? It's not like races. You know, I understand why the Palestinians have a cause against Israel. That makes sense. The Rohingya need to be more anti-Burmese, if anything. That would make sense. But how does a gender take up a cause against the other gender when the two of them rely on each other? Anyway, I've talked enough. Thank you for being patient with me. Keep in mind that they're weaponizing everything and only against you and the ones of their own that aren't against you. And that is war. Cold War, but it's a war. So go back and weaponize everything against them. Everything that they say, even if it is a valid point, you challenge it. Even if you admit it's a valid point, which you should, you still challenge it because you still want to make sure that the valid points they are making them for valid reasons too. I hope that this has been a benefit. Black heart, black mind, blackout. Assalamu alaikum.